Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of iZombie. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. I really appreciate the fact that obviously this episode is very structured very differently. This is the first time we've actually kind of gotten an episode almost entirely from the villain's point of view. Like, normally, like, the main focus tends to be, like, Liv in the case. We got very little of the case. We popped in every once in a while, but it was so interesting to see, like, it kind of seems like we focus on all the other storylines, and, like, Liv in the case kind of was, like, the most background element to the episode. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but obviously a big forefront to this is, hey, Blaine's in jail. I don't know why it didn't click in my head that he'd be arrested immediately, but it's just like, I was actually kind of surprised because I thought he was going to get to the whole kidnapping kids with the phalanx disease situation. No, that comes up later on, but I'll get to that soon enough. But it's like, oh, him trying to scrounge up the money to, you know, the whole lawyer situation. Donnie, Mr. Boss is back in the picture. It's like, what? That's pretty cool. And Mr. Boss wants to cut Blaine out of the operation, and he wants to be the new supplier for brains. I mean, to be fair, him and Donnie are already doing the hard work anyway, but it's like, oh, but now I want, Mr. Boss is like, we'll get double what you're paying Blaine. So now it's putting, you know, Major and Fillmore Graves in a very complicated situation. There was even this moment where Major had talked to, like, obviously a lot of, like, high-ranking people about the whole Seattle situation, and there's that one general that's like, oh, no, they're making good progress on this other stuff, so maybe we should give them a chance. It's like, oh, the lady was like, you're Mr. Nuke Seattle, so, well, it's nice to see the sun change. I'm like, that's the dude whose daughter got kidnapped, wasn't he? Because remember, there was some, wasn't it like last season, some bigwig's daughter got kidnapped last season to make it sure that Seattle didn't get nuked? I'm assuming that's him. Like, the fact is, because he's the only one that they even said, like, the fact is he changed his opposition like that, like, he went full other side of the spectrum of, like, how he feels about the situation, going from nuke him to, now let's give him a chance. It has to be him that had his daughter kidnapped. Nevertheless, there's just so much that went down in this episode we got to break down. I love that basically anytime Liv pops up Donnie's, because Carol, the victim in this episode, she was a matchmaker and she found a match for Donnie, but Donnie was like, oh wait, you ate her brain, that's so good. Okay, I'm gonna trigger some visions for you so we can find out. He's dropping glasses like, okay, come on, start a vision already. I love that. I even love later on, like, Liv has a vision. He's like, oh my god, you're having a vision. I'm like, right. I love it because it doesn't happen that often during the series, but I do like that every once in a while we have gotten, it's only like a handful of times, but gotten like the outside perspective of someone having a vision, be like, oh, I know what's going on. It's a vision. You know, I love that. It's so cool. So there's that side of things. There's a whole thing with Blaine going after Alice, and it kept going in my mind. I'm like, she's so okay with everything. I'm like, what? Blaine's going to murder you. Why are you so cool, calm, and collected? She was literally in front of him talking mad shit. I'm like, what are you doing? And, like, Blaine's kind of getting upset because he's like, oh, I came here to scare you. And even when he was saying that, you could see her kind of smirk. I'm like, why do you feel so in control? And then the fact of the matter is, like, he's saying, like, I want you scared, not knowing when I'm going to strike. But then she kind of puts him down, being like, oh, people like you with daddy issues are easy to play. Oh, like, the love of your life, Peyton. She actually, you know what she had to say about you? You're an embarrassment. He tries to step to her, but she pulls out a gun, and it's just like, oh. I was like, is that all it is? I mean, Blaine could still kind of get to you. To be fair, Blaine doesn't have the muscle and the reach that he once upon a time had, you know? So I was like, why are you so confident? And now we find out why. She's Mr. Boss's niece. I was like, what? That's crazy. I was like, that's why you were so confident. Like, you know, for you, I guess, like, dealing with people like Blaine, because that's why she looks at Blaine as nothing more than a thug, because I guess for her, it's like, I know a real criminal mastermind, I know a real go-getter in the criminal world, because my uncle's one, so I guess that's how that is. But it also explains, because I was trying to rattle my head around it last episode, like, why would you do that? You're a zombie. Why would you tank what is basically keeping everything in order? I mean, you're a zombie. You're going to need brains, so why would you? It's because that was Mr. Boss's plan, to take down Blaine so that he can swoop in and take over the business himself and make a huge profit off of it. And it's like, Alice was okay with it because it's like, hey, she's doing a favor for her uncle, also taking down Blaine's kind of a bonus, but also she knew that brains would be like the supply chain for brains would be back in order. So for her, she didn't have anything to worry about. She knew the supply was going to kick back in after a little while. So I was like, that's why you were so calm, cool, and collected, and why you were so okay with this. That's what it didn't make any sense to me. But now it's like, dude, they've been planning this for a while, but it's like, holy, I did not see that twist coming, dude. That's actually pretty dope, dude. And obviously, you know, Donnie, it's sad too, because like Donnie, you know, he's always kind of having to play the role of the grunt. Poor Tanner. I love that, because Tanner hasn't always been like the main character, but he's always been this recurring character that's always been in the background. And it's a shame. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, what happened to the cures? Because, you know, Blaine was like, oh, I'm gonna make some capital. We're gonna sell the rest of those cures. And Tanner ended up throwing them away because he thought they were drugs. It's like, yeah, no one's gonna find them. And Blaine stabbed him in the head with some scissors. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And he like, because the thing is, Blaine, you know, he's always acted calm, cool, and collected. Yes, he gets a little pissy here and there, but this is like the most upset you've ever seen him, to the point he's yelling at Don and saying, this is your mess, this is your fault, you were the one that was supposed to do this, so you clean up this Tanner mess. And it's like, dude. And there was a line that the moment like Donnie and Mr. Balls brought up someone like later on the name, you know, but they brought up someone named Bob. It's like Beanpole Bob. And the moment they brought it up, and then it's like, oh, whatever happened to him? It's like, oh, he fried his brain kind of in getting high on his own supply of Utopian. I'm like, wait. And the fact is, Major asked about it later on, and Robbie's like, okay, I'll ask Clive about it. I'm like, but the moment like he said, oh, he gets high off his own supply, I was like, is that supposed to be the big dude that's like sucking down Utopium a couple episodes ago, the dude who's running like the more radical extremist zombie movement and stuff like that, whereas Dolly's like pushing the extremist human point of view, he's pushing the extremist zombie point of view? I'm assuming that's supposed to be him, and the fact is he's named Beanpole. I don't know if the name's supposed to be ironic, or was maybe at one point in time he was a beanpole, but sucking down at a Utopia, maybe eating people, he buffed, got bigger or whatever. I'm assuming that's what that's supposed to be, not unless it ends up being something else entirely, but I'm assuming like they make such a point of it, and they brought up the whole Utopium. It's like, well, he's the most recent dude we've seen suck down Utopium like it's candy, so I don't know. So there's that side of things, which is kind of interesting. And obviously Major's in that complicated situation of like, okay, you have Dolly running her mouth off on the news being like, oh, they're running out of supplies of brains, and now it's like obviously everyone is reacting in different ways, whereas like the zombies are digging up graves trying to get brains. Obviously you have humans locking, loading, get whatever weapons they can, and now it's just like time is ticking and things are just getting worse. It's like, okay, so what do we do? I don't know, you know. And then, you know, it takes, you know, Major visiting a potential dude to kind of run the thing, but for him it's like, I don't know, I don't have the connections, I can't be a smuggler, but it's like, you don't need to be. All I need is the perception of someone who is, because the whole point is he's going to make it so that Donnie and Mr. Boss take the same job, but now he has to pay them less. He's actually paying them less than he was going to pay, than he was paying Blaine, because he's paying them like 80% of what he was paying Blaine, so bringing that down from the double that Mr. Boss was asking for. That's actually pretty dope. But obviously I love it too, because it's like, oh, this dude, he's the supplier dude, like that we're keeping this perception to the world. It's like, yeah, he's going to be the face of it, because we can't, and because obviously the last thing you want to do is obviously probably use Mr. Balls or Donnie. It's like, yeah, they can't necessarily be the forefront of this operation. So using this kind of wholesome philanthropist that a lot of people, or entrepreneur and philanthropist that a lot of people love and adore, it's like, well, obviously everyone's going to be down for it and everything like that, so it's good marketing. So it's so it kind of spins the it's a very good propaganda in their department of kind of like easing things up, and it also helped them with the whole dealings with Blaine. With Mr. Balls and Donnie. Donnie's taking over the scratching post. I don't know whether that's supposed to be read as like Donnie B. Goods. I assume that's how it's supposed to be read, but he's taking over. And I love that he kind of rips Blaine a new one, being like, why'd you keep the mask? It's like, because for him, it's like, this is all your fault. For one, you got played by Alice, because usually it's Blaine doing the playing, and so it's like, you got played by Alice, and on top of that, why did you keep the mask? Why did you have to have some souvenir? That was the nail in the coffin for Blaine. That's what screwed him over, his hubris. Because the fact of the matter is, and it's the point Robbie had made last time, like, Blaine gets away with everything, but it's like there was no more. Like, the fact of the matter is he built his own coffin and got screwed over. I mean, to be fair, it was a kind of a united front attack, because obviously it was Mr. Balls utilizing his niece Alice, but still. And you obviously Blaine is upset by this because it's just like he kind of has nothing now, because it's not like he can even work at the scratching post because it's not even his anymore, because it's like, well, we can't really have you walking around because everyone sees you're a killer, because obviously beforehand the scratching post was getting protests and stuff because everyone knows Blaine works there. So it's like, it's kind of a lose-lose situation for him. So it's like, dude, such a complicated situation. But then we get into the whole situation of like, okay, so here I am, like, with the kids with the Felix disease. So for him, he's taking advantage of it by basically having the kids sell their brains, so that to these, because obviously he can't do the cure thing anymore. It's so interesting. He's been sitting on those for so long, and now that's gone. But now he found another supply. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting how he circles back to it at the end of the episode. But now it's like, okay, because I was wondering, I was like, why don't you just straight up, like, because it's Blaine, I'm like, why don't you just straight up kill the kids? Because it's, as we know, because it's resurfaced again, it's not like you're above doing that. You literally did it at the beginning. So I guess you can make it to an argument. It's like everything's kind of going full circle for Blaine. He's kind of rebuilding his empire yet again, kind of rising from the bottom, kind of where he was at before he was at the bottom, rose to the top, and kind of pretty much stayed there, kept rising and rising over the course of the series. But now he's fallen, but now he's trying to rise again. So, but he even made a point to the dude being like, oh yeah, you're trying, he's like, I didn't really ask for the teenager, but it's like, hey, like, you want their brains, so it's like, yeah, from the disease, they'll probably drop dead in the next day or two, or I could speed it up, or I can go to a different supply, but it's like, I can wait. So that's kind of interesting. And I love the whole conversation of Blaine being like, well, am I a monster? And it's like, I only became a monster because they left me with no other choice. It's like, I guess for him, it's like, yeah, I might have done some monstrous things here and there, but the fact of the matter is, being this truly evil monster you see me now, it's like, well, they painted me into this corner. So, like, the thing is, yeah, they might have painted you in this corner. No one told you to take this opportunity to do that, So, quite a fascinating turn of events on Blaine's department. Obviously, there's everything with Dale and Clive. Like I said, it's so interesting because obviously they hit certain plot points with like the Liv stuff being like obviously like the good guys being kind of like the background in certain regards, with the exception of Major, because Major, obviously his storyline plays a big role with the bad guys, whether it be like Dolly or whether it be Mr. Boss, Donnie, and Blaine. But nevertheless, it turns into that situation of like, and the way the conversation makes it sounds like she already had the baby. She's Dale's on bed rest. Clive is taking over as temporary lieutenant. Makes you wonder, is that going to be a permanent thing? Obviously that depends on where Clive stands with all this. Obviously it's only until Dale gets back, but still I do like that it's kind of a nice look on him. And Liv's like, oh, how about a raise? It's like, no. So it's really nice on that front. Obviously there's everything with the teacher that works for Renegade, obviously trying to bring in someone else. We still don't 100% know what that plan is. Like I said, I think it is just kind of like they're trying to radicalize any zombies. Well, because that person's supposed to be a coyote, so I guess they're going to go out there and scratch other people and get more zombies. I guess that's going to be like the whole point. I mean, because that's the whole reason why like Liv's operation is. So it's like access to untapped potential zombies. So I guess, the coyote person won't really have to go out there, but they'll be secretly Liv will unintentionally be helping fuel this army of this radicalist zombie, as we potentially might know him as Bob, like I said, if that ends up being him, but nevertheless. So there's that. I do love that she was trying to play matchmaker between that lady Riley and Major, so that was really interesting. I also love like Ravi wouldn't listen when it's like, oh, we need a drink and stuff. Like, no, you don't want this drink. He's like, I can drink with you guys. And he drinks it, and it's like, oh, it's meant to test if someone's a zombie or not. I also love that Liv being on like the matchmaker brain. It's like, oh yeah, the whole Peyton and him thing. He's like, well, you're not going to take credit for me and Peyton getting together. You actually tried to keep us apart. She's like, yeah, so you would fight more for each other. Touch this guy. And it's like, I love it. So that's pretty interesting on that front. I do love that you have Major messing with Dolly. It's like, oh, let me buy some food. Hey, guys. Oh, guys, they serve zombies here. And then, like, the rest of a lot of people from Fillmore Graves show up. It's like to scare off the rest of her business. It turns out one of her son actually works for Fillmore Graves. He's like, Mom, and she's like, you lost the ability to call me Mom. And it's like, wow, you hate zombies that much, considering the fact is that your son is one. To be fair, that's not too much of a surprise, because we've seen it before where like best friends and people who care about each other turn against each other the moment one of them turns into a zombie. So it's so interesting. Like I say, like the dead enders popped up quite a bit like in last season. But to see things as they are now is kind of interesting, because I feel like obviously we saw the more radical side of zombies last season when, you know, Blaine's dad was kind of radicalizing them. Obviously, like, that's kind of part of Blaine's manipulation as well. But obviously he thought he was doing it for the best of reasons. So Blaine's dad in particular is what I'm referencing. But still, it's just kind of interesting to see where, you know, the story kind of take us to where we are right now. Obviously, you know, Donnie didn't tell Blaine about the whole, like, oh, I'm working with Mr. Boss and everything, because that probably soured the whole situation. So he's making it seem like, oh, yeah, it's a different supplier and stuff like that, even though he's still a part of that business. It's not just a scratching post, and that he obviously changed its name and stuff. It's not just that. It's going to be his lane of money, but obviously Blaine still found his lane anyway. I'm curious when it's all said and done. I think when it's all said and done, Blaine is going to kill Alice, not knowing that that's Mr. Boss's daughter, and he's going to be the one to put him down once and for all, because it's like, oh, not daughter, niece. It's like, that was my niece. He's like, wait, boom. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe it'd be a joint effort. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this play out, because I just get the feeling like Blaine is going to get his revenge, but Blaine is not surviving this series. No way in hell. Like, that was my thing. I'm like, is he going to come out of this alive or not? I don't think so. I think Blaine is dead by the end of this series. We'll see, but he'll probably go down swinging. So there's going to be a lot, obviously, you know, a lot of these teenagers with this disease. They're going to be casualties in all of this. So obviously Robbie did his best to try and stop it, but obviously, like, he might see hints to what Blaine is up to. So maybe he'll find a way to stop it. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. Obviously, also that warning from Dolly's son being like, don't underestimate my mom, she's dangerous. It's like, oh yeah, that's heavily foreshadowing some stuff is definitely going to go down. Like I said, just things are heating up in Seattle, and it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes from here. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.